we shared so much of our passion and vision for persons with disabilities, and her own passion for her daughter's well-being upon coming back to Trinidad and Tobago, and a lack of services and the challenges she faced. I know many of the families and individuals face on a daily basis in Trinidad and Tobago, which I don't think we can overcome by more advocacy and certainly with some level of legislative change. Also, I'd like to thank, we should congratulate Dr. Designate Jacqueline Huggins, since she successfully defended her thesis, and of course all other persons who will be presenting today. It's a pleasure to be here. One of the things, you know, I like to observe. I'm an observant person, and I've done a lot of MC work and sat on many panels. And something struck me this morning when the anthem was playing, because during my MC Master of Ceremonies work, I usually say, "Can we all stand for the national anthem of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago?" And this morning I observed this young man in the wheelchair here. And when that instruction was given, he pulled himself up by his wheelchair and stood in his way. He showed respect for the anthem. I thought that was so commendable. I think that, you know. So now I will change my salutation or instruction to, let us all acknowledge with respect the national anthem, because I think these little things are the things that we need to be doing as a country in terms of awareness and understanding with respect all aspects of society and everyone in society. The Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities was adopted on the 13th of December 2006 during the 61st session of the General Assembly Resolution ARES 61-106 in accordance with its Article 42. The Convention and its optional accordance with Article 42. Open for signature by all states and by regional integration organizations of the United Nations headquarters in New York on the 30th of March 2007. The opening began with a solemn ceremony in the UN General Assembly Hall. In terms of an overview of this convention, and to give some context, around 10% of the world's population, or 650 million people, live with a disability out of the world's 5 to 6 billion people. So we very often in society have a them and us mentality. You know, very often when I'm going around doing advocacy work or lending my support, we use the word they and them. And at some point, we will see that we all will be I don't want to say saddled, but encounter a disability of our own, which we have to navigate in our lives, whether it be through aging, through an accident, through trying to access some service that we think we should access as supposedly fully able-bodied people. And it's then that it hits us that, you know, it's not them against us, it's all of us. And until we get past that mentality, and as Mr. Sona says, that attitudinal paradigm shift of them against us, I think that is when we will understand the kinds of services and support we need. The figure is increasing throughout the population of the world with medical advances with the aging process. As people get older, more services are needed for them to live productive lives. In countries with life expectancies over 70 years, individuals spend an average of about 8 years, or 11.5% of their lifespan, living with a disability. That's over 10% of your life. All of us will be living with some sort of disability. And I think that should start to put it into context. If we do not get the rights system and the supportive systems in place, we will all face challenges that are not really absolutely necessary. 80% of persons with disabilities live in developing countries, of which Trinidad and Tobago is one, which means we are particularly acute in this way, in this manner. Disability rates are significantly higher among groups with lower educational attainment in the countries of Organizations for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD. On an average, 90% of less educated people have disabilities compared to 11% among better educated. And that is not because persons with disabilities are less intelligent. It's because in most cases the services are not there to support a productive education process. And that's all it is. In most OECD countries, women report higher incidence of disabilities than men. Once again, because women, believe it or not, are a marginalized group in society. Still, in 2016, women face these challenges. The World Bank estimates that 20% of the world's poorest people are disabled. And we have to ask ourselves why that is. And tend to be regarded in their own communities as the most disadvantaged. Women with disabilities are recognized to be multipliably disadvantaged, experiencing exclusion on account of their gender and their disabilities. So women are also faced with what we would describe as a double whammy, simply because of their gender. Women and girls with disabilities are particularly vulnerable to abuse. In a 2004 survey in India found that virtually all of the women and girls with disabilities were beaten at home. 25% of women with intellectual disabilities had been raped in this survey, and 6% of disabled women had been forcibly sterilized. And this is in 2004 this was done. According to UNICEF, 30% of street youth are disabled. Mortality for children with disabilities may be as high as 80% in countries where under 5 mortality as a whole has decreased to below 20%, according to the United Kingdom Department for International Development. Comparative studies on disability legislation shows that only 45 countries have anti-discrimination and other disability-specific laws. We don't really fall into that category, unfortunately, in Trinidad and Tobago, and we need to fix that. In the United Kingdom, 75% of the companies in the FTSE 100 index and the London Stock Exchange do not meet basic level for web accessibility, thus missing out on more than $147 million in revenue. In terms of education, 90% of children with disabilities in developing countries do not attend school. 90%. This is according to UNESCO. The global literacy rate for adults with disabilities is as low as 3%, and 1% for women with disabilities. This is according to a 1998 UNDP study. In the OECD countries, students with disabilities in higher education remains underrepresented, although their numbers are fortunately on the increase. In terms of employment, an estimated 386 million of the world's working age people are disabled, according to the International Labor Organization, the ILO. Unemployment among disabled is as high as 80% in some countries. Often employers assume that persons with disabilities are unable to work because of erroneous perceptions and attitudes that need to change. Even though persons with disabilities constitute a significant 5 to 6% of India's population, their employment needs are unmet. And we also see that very often in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean, where there's some companies that are doing very well, but in the state sector and the private sector, persons with disabilities are either not employed, there are no provisions for some sort of cadre of employment, or they are given very menial, disrespectful tasks, or shunted into a corner. I remember the case of a young girl with a disability, a young woman with a disability, who attained her law degree and was hired by the then Ministry of Legal Affairs, the Attorney General's office, and she left the job in under 6 months because she was put in a corner and given papers to file or some sort of menial task. And it just goes to show that although she was educated and had her law degree and passed the bar, she was not allowed to practice professionally, properly. A 2004 US survey found that only 35% of working age people with disabilities are in fact working, compared to 78% of those without disabilities. 2/3 of the unemployed disabled respondents said they would like to work but could not find jobs. Or when they went to interviews, without disclosing before, the interviews were either shut down or cut short because the interviewer recognized that they had a disability of some sort and didn't think they would be a right fit for the organization in 2015. A 2003 study by Rutgers University found that people with physical and mental disabilities continue to be vastly underrepresented in the US workplace. 1/3 of the employers surveyed said that people with disabilities cannot effectively perform their required job tasks, even though they were as qualified as everyone else. The second most common reason given for not hiring a disabled person was the fear of costly special facilities. A US survey of employers conducted in 2003 found that the cost of accommodation was only $500 or less. In many cases, Christmas parties and weekend functions cost 300 and 400% more. 73% of employers reported that their employees did not require special facilities at all. This is almost 3/4. Companies report that employees with disabilities have better retention rates, reducing higher cost of turnover. In a 2002 study, other American surveys revealed that after 1 year of employment, the retention rate